Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. You don't sign up to fly the F-35 because you want an easy life. You do it because there's a voice in your head that refuses to shut up. It says, "You were built for more." It whispers to you in the middle of the night, in the howl of jet engines, in the silent space between radar pings. That voice had never let me down, until the day everything changed. It started like any other day at the base. I was stationed at a coastal Air Force facility. Won't say the exact location, but let's just say if you flew too far west, you'd end up in international waters real quick. That morning, I was scheduled for a routine aerial combat simulation. Pre-flight checks were smooth. My crew chief, Harris, gave me the thumbs up, and I climbed into the cockpit like I'd done 100 times before. Helmet on, systems green, engines humming. The bird was ready to fly. I taxied down the runway, got clearance from the tower, and took off into a clear blue sky. Everything was normal until about 15 minutes into the training run. Controls started glitching out. Static over comms. GPS going haywire. HUD blinking like it couldn't decide whether I was 30,000 feet up or parked on a street in Nebraska. Night 1. We're experiencing network disruptions across the region. Please hold altitude and await further instruction, the tower said, voice strained. Copy, holding at 32,000, I replied, fingers tense on the stick. Then came the tone, the emergency broadcast override. A long, shrill beep cut through all channels. Red text flooded my helmet display. I'd never seen it before, and trust me, I've seen a lot. It simply read, "National Emergency Code, Black Land immediately and seek shelter." That was it. No details, no clarification. Just that, code black. I banked hard, turning back toward the base. The coastline was barely visible when I saw the first plume of smoke, then another, closer. Something was very wrong. Tower, this is Night 1, requesting emergency landing clearance. What's happening on the ground? Silence. Then static. Then a scream. Not the kind you hear in drills or exercises, not the kind you expect from someone in uniform. This was raw, panicked, human, cut off mid-breath. I repeated the request, but nothing came back. The runway came into view, littered with scattered vehicles, some burning. A fuel truck tipped sideways near one of the hangars. A fire was eating its way across the tarmac. I made a hard landing, rough, but the F-35 can take it. I popped the canopy, unbuckled, and climbed down with my sidearm drawn, already sweating under my flight suit. The base was a war zone, but there were no enemy jets, no missiles. Just chaos. I spotted Harris about 50 yards away, limping, his uniform torn and stained with something dark. He saw me, mouth open like he was going to yell, but he stopped, eyes wide with terror. Then someone, or something, tackled him from behind. I couldn't believe what I saw. It was one of our own, a tech specialist, I think. But his eyes were wild, bloodshot. His mouth was covered in red and he was snarling. Not yelling, not screaming. Snarling, like a wild animal, he tore into Harris with his bare hands. I froze. My brain couldn't process it. But my body did. I turned and ran. I ran for the nearest shelter, an underground storage bay we used for high-value equipment. My keycard still worked by some miracle, and the heavy door slammed shut behind me with a final metallic thud. The silence was unbearable. Only the hum of emergency backup lights buzzed faintly overhead. I sank to the floor, heart pounding, brain on fire with questions. What did I just see? Had Harris really been attacked by one of our own? I tried to replay it in my head, hoping I had imagined the whole thing, but I couldn't erase the image of Harris's terrified face or the way that Tech's hands moved, clawed, frantic, unnatural. I didn't stay in the bunker long. I needed answers. I had to find someone, anyone, who could tell me what was going on. I cracked the door just enough to peek out. Smoke hung thick over the base like a storm cloud. Shadows darted between the buildings. Some walked with a jerking, broken rhythm. Others sprinted like predators who had caught a scent. I moved low, sticking to walls and shadows. Years of combat training kicked in automatically. This was no drill. This was survival. Near the medical center, I spotted a group of survivors. 3 people, huddled behind an overturned Humvee. One of them had a sidearm. The others clutched tools or improvised weapons. I called out softly, hands raised to show I wasn't one of them. They jumped at the sound, aiming toward me, but relaxed once they saw the flight suit. "You made it back," the one with the pistol said. A young woman, sharp eyes, probably enlisted aircrew. Thought all pilots were still up in the air when it started. I was. Got the code black, mid-flight. What's happening? She shook her head, clearly still processing. Started a couple hours ago. First, it was just comms acting weird. Then a couple of guys from the infirmary went nuts. Biting, clawing. Took down 2 officers before anyone realized what was happening. The word biting hit me like a slap. They're not just sick, she continued. They change. Fast. Like minutes fast. You get touched, scratched, whatever, they turn. I blinked at her. You're telling me we've got some kind of outbreak? No, we've got a nightmare. She introduced herself as Reyes. The others were Beck and Nolan. Reyes had a radio, shortwave, old school, and had picked up a broken broadcast earlier. They said cities are falling. This isn't just us, it's everywhere. A cold dread settled in my gut. If Reyes was right, if the outbreak had spread past the base, then there was no help coming, no rescue, no cavalry. We were on our own. And worse, time was running out. Every minute we stayed, more of them would turn. The infected, the ones who moved like shadows and struck like animals. We needed a plan. I pulled a rough schematic of the base from memory. There's an underground hangar 2 clicks east. Reinforced concrete, one way in, one way out. If we can get there, we might hold out long enough to regroup and figure out our next move. Reyes nodded. Better than sitting here waiting to be dinner. We scavenged what we could. Ammo, rations, flashlights. Beck found a flare gun, Nolan a crowbar. I held on to my service sidearm and a fire axe I'd ripped from a wall case. Then we ran. Every hallway was a trap. Every corner hid the unknown. We moved in a tight group, weapons raised, eyes scanning every shadow. It felt like a stealth mission in a war zone, except the enemy wasn't trained or armed. They were feral, driven, and worse, they didn't stop. We were 2 buildings away from the underground hangar when the alarm klaxons kicked on again. Only this time, they weren't from us. They were warning sirens from the nearby civilian city. Red lights strobed in the clouds above. And from across the base came a sound I'll never forget. Hundreds of footsteps. Uncoordinated. Sloppy. Fast. They were coming. They came in waves. We didn't even get a chance to reach the hangar before the first group spotted us. They weren't like the others I'd seen earlier, the slow twitching ones. Said these were faster. Hungrier. Their eyes locked on us with tunnel vision, as if the only thing they could comprehend was movement and flesh. "Go! Move!" I yelled, leading the group into the motor pool. a concrete maze of Humvees and maintenance trucks. The sound of our boots echoed like thunder in that enclosed space. Reyes fired first. Her sidearm cracked, taking one of the infected in the shoulder. It staggered for a split second before launching itself forward like the shot only made it angrier. Nolan swung his crowbar and caught one across the face. It dropped, but not before scratching him along the arm. "I'm good," he grunted. But we all exchanged a glance. No one said it aloud, but we were all thinking the same thing. That scratch might have been a countdown. We didn't have time to argue. I led them through the maintenance corridor, then up into the old command wing. It had long been decommissioned. Dust-covered consoles, cracked monitors, and yellowed charts still taped to the walls. But it had something more valuable than all of that combined. A back exit that led straight to the underground hangar. We barricaded the doors behind us using desks and filing cabinets. It wasn't perfect, but it would buy us a few minutes. Just a few. We paused inside an old briefing room, catching our breath. Nolan leaned against the wall, sweat pouring down his face. Reyes kept checking the radio for more transmissions. Beck stood watch, tense and quiet, gripping the flare gun like his life depended on it. "Why us?" he whispered, voice shaky. "Why did we survive when everyone else didn't?" I didn't have an answer. I looked at the others. Each of us had some kind of military training, but that didn't mean we were immune. We were just lucky. For now. Then the radio crackled again. A broken voice, distorted and barely audible. "If still alive, proceed to secure zone. Facility Echo, coordinates to follow." Then static. "Facility Echo?" Reyes asked. "That's not far from here," I said. "I've seen it on maps, an old missile silo that got repurposed for black-level testing. If they're broadcasting from there, it means someone high up is still alive. Or it's a trap," Beck muttered. "Or it's our only chance," I countered. The silence that followed was enough to answer both points. We all knew what had to be done. But first, we had to make it to the hangar and re-equip. Nolan suddenly groaned, clutching his arm. The scratch. It had turned red, swollen. His veins beneath it were darkening like ink spilling under the skin. "Guys," he said, voice trembling, "I don't feel right." We stepped back instinctively, weapons half raised. "Don't," he said. "I'm not gone yet." But we could see it in his eyes. The fever, the sweat, the barely controlled twitching in his fingers. He was fighting it with everything he had. "There's still time," Reyes said. "If we find a cure, if Facility Echo has anything, we can fix this." We wanted to believe that. We had to believe that. But deep down, I wasn't sure if there was a cure. All I knew was that the clock was ticking. On Nolan, on the base, on everything. We left the command wing through the back exit and made our way into the drainage tunnels beneath the runway. It smelled of oil and rust, but it was safer than walking in the open. Every footstep echoed. Every drop of water made us flinch. At the end of the tunnel was a service ladder that led up into the hangar. Beck climbed first, then Reyes. I helped Nolan up last. When I finally emerged, I shut the hatch behind us. We'd made it, for now. The hangar lights flickered on via backup power. It was dusty, cold, and full of tools, gear, and spare parts, but it was shelter. More than that, it was a temporary stronghold. We pulled an old steel door shut behind us and reinforced it with chains and metal rods. The infected were out there, swarming the base like ants. But we were in here. And we had one more objective, get to Facility Echo. Whatever was happening out there, The key to surviving it might be waiting at those coordinates. Or it might be the last mistake we ever made. The hangar felt like a momentary breath after being underwater for too long. Reinforced walls, emergency rations, and most importantly, gear. We found rifles, ammo crates, a working drone terminal, and even a small recon rover tucked under a tarp in the far corner. Nolan collapsed onto a cot in the back office, shivering and barely responsive. His skin had gone pale, and his breathing was shallow. Reyes stayed with him, trying to keep him awake, while Beck and I scavenged what we could from the storage lockers. Beck found a set of thermal goggles and a couple of oxygen tanks. I managed to get an old comms terminal running and pinged Facility Echo with a short, encrypted burst. Nothing. Either they were dark or already gone. We didn't have the luxury of waiting to find out. After an hour, Nolan stirred and called us over. His voice was weak but urgent. I don't have much time, he said. But I'm not going out like them, you hear me? Reyes swallowed hard. You're not. We're going to find that place and get you help. He gave a faint smile that said he didn't believe her, but appreciated the lie. That was when the drone picked something up. Movement. The rover's camera panned slowly through the dark. The hangar's security system was patched into the network just enough for me to get eyes on the outer yard. Dozens of them, maybe more. Just standing there, not moving, not moaning, not howling like animals. Just staring at the hangar door, like they knew we were in here. They're waiting, Beck muttered, like they're patient. That's not normal. They haven't been normal since the beginning, I said. But yeah, this is different. Then one of them moved. A slow, deliberate step forward, then another. It was wearing a lab coat, torn and filthy, but something in its eyes. They were focused. This one wasn't like the others. I stared at the screen, heart thudding. I think that one used to be a base scientist. And now, Reyes asked, now it looks like it's in charge. The creature raised a hand. The swarm began to move. We didn't wait around to find out what their plan was. We gathered what gear we could carry, stuffed Nolan into a reinforced transport cart, and cracked the side service door. The creatures hadn't breached the fence yet, but it was only a matter of time. We moved through a maintenance tunnel that led to the airstrip, planning to use one of the emergency evac vehicles stored near the auxiliary hangar. As we emerged into the moonlit yard, the silence was overwhelming. No birds, no engines. Just the rustle of distant footsteps and the sharp breath of our own panic. We reached the evac lot. 2 trucks, 1 flatbed, 1 armored. By some miracle, the armored one still had juice in its battery. Beck fired it up while Reyes helped me load Nolan into the back. That's when I saw it. The creature in the lab coat. It was standing on the roof of a nearby hangar, staring down at us. Not attacking, just watching. And then it smiled. I swear to you, it smiled. It raised both arms, and from the shadows they came. Dozens. No, hundreds. From behind buildings, under vehicles, from sewer grates. They moved like a wave of broken limbs and snapping jaws. I climbed into the truck and slammed the door. Drive! Beck didn't hesitate. We roared through the gate, tires screeching on pavement. The infected chased us, pouring down the runway behind us like a flood. And just as we cleared the outer fence, the lab coat creature let out a sound, something guttural, like a twisted version of a voice. It wasn't random. It was a command, a call to follow. We were no longer running from mindless creatures. We were being hunted. We drove like the world was ending behind us, because it was. The road out of the base was cracked and uneven, covered in debris, abandoned vehicles, and the occasional burned-out checkpoint. Our tires crunched over shattered glass and empty shell casings. I gripped the dashboard with one hand and my sidearm with the other, eyes scanning the tree line for movement. In the back, Nolan was barely conscious. Reyes checked his pulse every few minutes, whispering something to him that none of us could hear. Beck drove like someone possessed. He didn't say a word, just clenched his jaw and kept his eyes forward, hands locked to the wheel. The truck bounced and jolted, but he didn't flinch. Facility Echo was about 30 miles out, tucked deep in the high desert between rocky hills and old missile fields. It was meant to be a failsafe, a place you never wanted to go unless the world had truly gone sideways. Well, it had. About 10 miles in, we came across the wreckage of a civilian convoy. Several cars, a bus, and a fuel truck were jackknifed across the road. The bus doors hung open, smeared with something dark and dry. Whatever happened here, it had ended fast. "We'll have to clear a path," I said. "We can't go around. Too many rocks." Beck killed the engine, and we stepped out into the eerie silence. The air felt thick, heavy, like it was holding its breath. We moved slowly, sweeping the wrecks with our rifles. Some of the cars still had bodies inside, silent, unmoving. We didn't touch them. Reyes climbed into the bus to scout ahead, while Beck and I worked on moving one of the smaller sedans blocking the road. We'd just shifted it enough for the truck to squeeze through when Reyes called out, "Guys, you need to see this." We hurried over. Inside the bus, scratched into the windows and etched into the plastic seats, were words. Dozens of them. Desperate, panicked messages. Some looked like they were written in permanent marker, others not so much. "They hear everything. Don't run, they'll chase. The one in white is smart." That last one stopped me cold. "The one in white," Beck whispered. "That's got to be the thing in the lab coat." Reyes nodded slowly. "It's not just leading them. It's studying us." We didn't linger. We got back in the truck and drove. As the terrain shifted from open road to cracked asphalt and dirt trails, the comms terminal in the dash picked up a faint signal. Facility Echo's beacon. A 3-tone ping, repeating on a loop. They were still online. We followed the signal up a ridge, passing another checkpoint. This one manned by silence and shadows. Empty towers. No guards. Just a rusted sign warning of unauthorized entry. Beyond it was a gate built into the side of a cliff. Steel, reinforced, still shut. We parked, climbed out, and approached on foot. Beck pounded on the intercom. "This is Air Force personnel, survivors. We're requesting entry." Nothing. I keyed the panel. It blinked red, then green. The door slowly creaked open, revealing a long tunnel descending into darkness. "I've got a bad feeling about this," Reyes muttered. "Yeah," I said, "but it's all we've got." We pushed the cart with Nolan down the ramp, our footsteps echoing off the walls. The lights flickered on in a sequence, cold and sterile, revealing blast doors and surveillance cameras aimed down the corridor. Then, a voice came over the intercom. "You made it. Good." It was male, calm, too calm. "I'm Dr. Halverson," he continued. "You'll want to secure the patient in quarantine chamber 3. Follow the lights." None of us moved. Beck spoke first. "How do we know you're not one of them?" The voice chuckled, dry and flat. "Because if I were, I wouldn't be talking. I'd be tearing through that door. Now hurry." "He doesn't have long." Reyes looked at Nolan, whose skin was now flushed with an unnatural hue, veins dark and pulsing. His eyes fluttered open just for a second. "Go," he rasped. "If there's a chance, take it." We followed the lights. Down a hallway, through another set of doors, into a chamber lined with thick glass and medical equipment that looked like it belonged in a sci-fi lab. We laid Nolan on a gurney inside. As soon as the door sealed, gas flooded the room, white mist curling through vents in the walls. "What are you doing?" Reyes shouted. The voice returned. "Sedation. If he turns, the room holds him. If he doesn't, we'll know the treatment worked." "Treatment?" I asked. "You're telling me you have a cure?" "No, not a cure, but a prototype. Something experimental. Something that might delay the process." I gritted my teeth. "You knew this was coming." There was a pause. "Yes," he said at last. "We all did. The program was never supposed to be tested in the wild." A chill ran through me. "What program?" Another silence. Then the intercom clicked off. No answer. Just the flickering lights and the sense that we'd stepped into something far bigger than a simple outbreak. Something that had started long before the first infected ever opened their eyes. Facility Echo was far more than we expected. After Nolan was sealed inside the quarantine chamber, the rest of us were escorted through a series of corridors, automated doors opening only after retina scans and encrypted voice codes. We didn't see a single soul until we reached the operations hub. And even then, it didn't feel alive. The lights were too clean, the air too still. Surveillance monitors lined the walls, each showing footage from various locations, some from the outside world, others from deep within. Dr. Halverson was waiting for us. He stood behind a thick pane of reinforced glass, communicating via intercom. Middle-aged, sharp features, white lab coat with a strange emblem on the sleeve, a spiral inside a triangle. I'd never seen it before. "You survived longer than most," he said. "That means something." "What is this place?" Reyes demanded. He looked straight at her, eyes unreadable. "A safeguard, a vault of knowledge, a containment facility if needed." "You knew this would happen," I said, stepping forward. "You weren't surprised. You were prepared." Halverson didn't flinch. "What you encountered is the result of a failed weaponization project. Something we tried to bury years ago. It was never meant to be released. But something, or someone, breached the vault at Base Echo 1. "The thing in the lab coat," I said. "It's different, smarter." Halverson nodded. "It wasn't a normal subject. It was part of Phase 3. We were attempting to integrate higher cognitive control, give it command abilities. It worked too well." Reyes slammed her fist against the glass. "So, you're saying this thing is leading the outbreak?" "It's not leading," Halverson said. "It's learning, adapting. And now that it knows about you, it won't stop." I felt the chill go all the way to my bones. "You can stop it, though," I said, "right?" Halverson hesitated. "We've been working on countermeasures, but nothing definitive. All we've been able to do is slow it down." He gestured toward the monitor showing Nolan, still unconscious in the chamber. "Your friend has been injected with the latest formula. If it works, we'll have a prototype. If not—" He didn't finish the sentence. An alarm suddenly blared overhead. Red lights flashed, steel doors sealed, a mechanical voice repeated, "Containment breach in Sector 4. I turned to the nearest monitor. The creature, the one in white. It was here. It had followed us. "How did it find this place?" Reyes breathed. Beck looked at Halverson. "You said this place was sealed." "It was," he replied, voice strained. "There must have been a tracker. Someone in your group." We all turned toward the monitor showing Nolan. "No," I whispered. "The veins. The fever. The fact that he stayed lucid for longer than expected." He was never just infected, Halverson said grimly. He was linked. They used him like a homing beacon. I felt a weight hit my chest. We'd led it right to the one place that might have stood a chance. Another monitor flickered. The hangar door, bending. Not just from pressure intelligence. "They're breaching the facility," someone shouted over the comms. "Seal everything," Halverson barked. "Activate the failsafe." "What's the failsafe?" I asked. His eyes narrowed. "This place wasn't just built for research. It's also a fire break." "You're going to blow it up," Beck realized. Halverson didn't deny it. "If it spreads beyond this valley, there's no stopping it. We've already lost contact with 3 more installations. This is our last line." We looked at Nolan one last time. He was awake now, calm, aware. "Do it," he said through the speaker. "Don't let them win." I didn't want it to end this way, but we were out of time. Halverson keyed the detonation protocol. A countdown appeared on the wall. "We need to get out of here," I said. "There's a lift to the surface," Halverson replied. "Back the way you came. It'll take you to the ridge." We ran. Lights flashed red. Metal groaned behind us. The walls shook as the breach spread, doors failed, alarms wailed. But we made it to the lift. Just as it began to rise, I turned back. Through the closing doors, I saw the creature. The one in white. It stood tall, watching us ascend. Its face was almost human. Almost. And in that moment, it smiled again. The surface was cold and dark. The stars above were silent, uncaring. We hit the deck just as the earth below buckled and bloomed in light. Facility Echo was gone. A crater left in its place. But I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Because when I looked at Reyes and Beck, I saw the same thing in their eyes that I'd seen in that creature's. Something watching. Something waiting. And deep inside me, I could still feel the hum of the place. Like it had left a mark. Like it had chosen us. The first 12 hours were just the beginning. Now, it was our turn to survive the next. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.